For about as long as I can remember, I've been fascinated by this thing, especially when it's in the vicinity of these things. This is a token ring MAU, or Media Access Unit, and it can be very loosely thought of as a networking hub or switch, allowing multiple computers to connect to a network together, but a token ring network is far, far different from the Ethernet networks we're used to today. The odd difference is right in the name, in fact. Token ring. The machines on the network, or ring stations, as IBM called them, are connected in a logical ring, and they quite literally pass something called a token around to send data to one another. Only one ring station can transmit at a time, passing around the token, as opposed to Ethernet, which allows any of the machines on the network to transmit when they please. This would of course lead to what were called collisions, multiple machines trying to transmit at once. This has essentially been solved via some very sophisticated techniques and the introduction of network switches, but back in 1984, when Token Ring was introduced by IBM, they tried to give Ethernet a run for its money. Which brings us to all of this stuff. I have several videos where I've explored actually successfully creating a Token Ring network with some Windows 95 and Windows 98 machines, but I would really like to get one of these IBM PS2 machines on the ring. So we're going to fight to get a Token Ring adapter and an MCA card installed in one of these IBM PS2 machines. That'll turn out to be no easy feat. And then we'll figure out what software we need to get on the IBM PS2 to finally get it talking over Token Ring to a Windows 98 machine. Let's get into it. These IBM PS2 machines have a grasp on me that I can't quite describe, but I'll try. PS2 stands for Personal System 2 and was IBM's attempt to wrestle back full control of the personal computer market that they themselves had created in the early 1980s. Released in 1987, they run DOS, some are even capable of running Windows, but IBM deviated from what was considered the industry standard architecture at the time and introduced something called the microchannel architecture, or MCA.
It's a closed architecture, even though the other guest says it's open. It's open in a certain way, but IBM threatens to sue anyone for patent violation if they use it. And I'm, a little disappointed, actually.
In true IBM fashion, there are approximately 2.3 million variations of these PS2 machines, some even fully PC compatible, but the vast majority use MCA as their peripheral bus. When I say peripheral bus, I'm talking about how you'd plug in additional cards to your computer. This is a pretty typical mid-90s PC. It's got PCI slots here and some ISA, industry standard architecture, back from the original IBM PC days. You'd plug in like an audio card or a video card, network card, whatever peripherals you need inside your machine. For example, here is an ISA networking card and a PCI sound card. Both of these will fit happily into that machine I was just showing you, that typical mid-90s machine. ISA being the standard laid down by IBM with the original IBM PC, eventually superseded by PCI. But here is an MCA card that those PS2 machines use. You can see totally different, incompatible form factor at the very least, a totally different technology. You can't just throw this into that IBM PC, and more importantly, you can't just throw these into those PS2s on the bench. Back in the mid-1990s to early 2000s, my dad owned computer stores in the Puget Sound area in Washington State. Now that sounds like a pretty sweet deal, and in many ways it was for me as a kid, with nothing to worry about, but it basically ended in near financial ruin. I'm biased, of course, but I have what I think is a really great video talking with Dad about the whole saga, which I'll link to down in the description. Long story short, when I was a kid, Dad let me take 2 of these home for a couple weeks to mess around with them. I don't remember which models they were or anything like that. But the important part is I had the MAU and the requisite cables. And the cables, as you can obviously see, are half the fun here. These are Type 1 connectors, and they're what IBM called hermaphroditic, meaning you do not have to worry about the gender on the other end. They're kind of hard to get apart. Just like that. There's just something so 1980s about these things. I don't know how to describe it. So back to the story. Of course, I was like 9 years old when I was messing around with these things. I never got them to do anything except maybe turn on. They were probably pretty healthy back in the late 90s. I have a video where I restored this big guy. And yeah, these poor old things are starting to wear out. They take a little love and affection. Something about these has stuck with me, both the PS2 line and the Token Ring stuff. So the plan is we're going to try to fire up one or more of these things and get them on a Token Ring network. Let's start by looking at a bunch of the Token Ring gear I've been accumulating over the last 2 years, and I'm pretty sure this isn't even all of it. Everything starts with the MAU, or Media Access Unit. I like to say it's kind of like a hub in the Ethernet world, but really, Token Ring is totally different from Ethernet in many, many different ways, so that's the best analogy I can come up with. You obviously plug your machines into this the same way you would plug them into a switch or a hub, and that's how they get on a network together, or in our case, on a ring. There were plenty of different MAUs that were created over the years, but I think this IBM 8228 is sort of the classic. Most people, if they think of Token Ring and they already know about it, they're thinking of this guy. This thing is completely passive, meaning it does not have its own power supply or anything like that. It gets all the power it needs from the machines that are plugging into it. And it uses relays that you can hear physically clicking and clacking as machines, ring stations, attempt to enter the ring. We'll consult the literature to learn a little more about that later. These can be pretty pricey. My understanding is that like a lot of Token Ring stuff was made over the years. You know, it's 30 plus year career. But for some reason, these eBay sellers and anyone really, they really think they've got something special. Well, I mean, they do. But yeah, this stuff can be pretty pricey. I snagged this one for a pretty good deal. And by that, I mean, I think I paid $50 US shipped. I don't know if that's a good deal at this moment. You have to be pretty careful when you're picking up some of this stuff. You can get the cards that I'm going to show you later for a pretty good deal. You know, basically nothing. But a lot of the apparatus you need is a little pricey. Maybe that's why. You cannot just plug two computers in over Token Ring the same way you would over Ethernet with what's called a crossover cable. Two computers directly networked together. You need this infrastructure. You need at least a MAU, which is sort of frustrating, you know, here in 2025 when you're trying to do this just for fun in your basement. Another thing that can catch you up, which I think is relatively rare, is that this thing didn't work when I initially got it. I could not get it working. It took me hours and hours of troubleshooting. I could never get two computers to connect, and that's because you might need the setup tool. So the deal with this guy is it takes a 9-volt battery and it can reset these ports. I haven't done enough research to be able to explain it to you in any technical, accurate fashion, but basically, because this thing is passive and it's requiring the power, you know, from the machines coming in, these ports can kind of get in a stuck state where they think the ring station is bad, I think, and they won't turn back on, and you have to reset them with the setup tool. And if you thought the other stuff was expensive, I would recommend you go look and see how much these things cost. This is not even mine, so I'm going to try to be careful with it here. 1 second. My buddy that happens to live close, Doogie Labs, another YouTuber that has some great Sun Microsystems content, probably covers in depth some stuff you haven't seen before, loaned this to me and I still have it. In fact, anytime you see these Token Ring cables that are nice with the IBM logo and everything, he loaned me those too. These are not mine. I've got these cheapo Type 1 to RJ45 connector. There's just 4 pins in there. We'll get into the cables. But anyway, huge thanks to him, because with the battery in, watch and listen. We're going to put it in and we're going to see the light do some stuff. We're going to hear some relays click and clack. We're going to reset this port. You hear that? That was this port being reset, and I was super unlucky. Sometimes you can pick these up and they're totally healthy, and you don't need this at all. In fact, my understanding, well, not my experience. My experience is that mine was totally broken and I needed this thing for all the ports, but a lot of Token Ring folks that I've talked to have said you barely ever need this thing. I needed it for all of these. So you plug it in, light fades, then you hear the click. And that port is reset, clicks as I pull it out. And you have to do that on, you know, any of them that are giving you trouble. None of mine worked, which was very unfortunate. This is called the Setup Aid tool. There are some schematics online. I tried to build my own, didn't work, probably my fault. These things, last I checked, a good deal was like $100 US on eBay. I have to imagine this came with every one of these. Say what you want about IBM, but they're not going to ship you something you can't fix so simply with something like this. And there's not a lot to it. I mean, you saw me pulling the battery out. It's like 2 resistors or something in there. Really ridiculous. Anyway, word of warning. You might need one of these to get the passive mouse working. I like to think I'm a pretty passive guy, but luckily, not all mouse are passive. This is a 16-port powered mouse by Thomas Conrad Corporation. I picked this guy up when I couldn't get this one to work, and this one has never given me trouble. I don't know if they're easy to find or if I got lucky on eBay or whatever. This thing is sweet. I have no idea, and I'm not even gonna bother doing it. I'm not gonna risk it if it resets its own ports or something, but I've used, I think, every single port and tried them all out off camera in other videos, and it just works. It just works. This one does now too, to be fair, once I reset them all. But this thing is super sweet, super reliable, and so the point is there are other mouse. With the mouse out of the way, let's talk about cabling. So you already saw this big guy. This is what's called a Type 1 connector. IBM also called it hermaphroditic. You saw that they can connect into one another, and it was also sometimes in actual documentation and casually called a Boy George connector. I'll let you do your own research about that. Now, it is most famously or infamously known, however you want to look at it, as a token ring cable, but it actually came from the IBM cabling system. This was a cabling standard and setup they thought was gonna hopefully take off and be adopted by the industry for all sorts of things. They probably kind of missed the future-proofing mark there. There's only actually 4 wires in this thing. This is a Type 1 to DB9 connector. That would have been pretty typical, especially in older token ring setups. This is what's called an STP cable, or shielded twisted pair. So there's some shielding around the cable, that's why it's so big, with 2 twisted pairs running inside. There's also unshielded twisted pair, UTP. That's just a typical RJ45 connector, and if we zoom in here, of course, there are only 4 wires in there. These are the 2 basic connectors from the MAU, or the networking infrastructure, to an actual ring station or computer, RJ45 or DB9, STP, UTP. For example, here is a 3Com Token Link Velocity XL PCI token ring card, and on the box you can see it says it supports UTP or STP, and the card has a port for either cable type. You can't use them at the same time, it's just one or the other. Also, this card is a total piece of crap. Do not buy it. Piece of junk. So you've got the MAU, you can think of this as the switch or the hub. They typically use this Type 1 connector here, and then they convert it to DB9 or RJ45, and you get a token ring card on your machine like this one, which accepts STP or the DB9 connector with just 4 cables running through it. These are MCA cards, meaning they're going to theoretically work in those PS2 machines. I think some of the RS6000 line also had some MCA stuff going on, but basically PS2 was the name of the game when it came to this form factor. They come in these pretty sweet boxes with the view window here, and you'll notice it says 16.4. That stands for the speed. Token ring in these days could operate at 16 megabits per second, a little bit better than 10 megabit Ethernet, or 4 megabits per second, quite a bit worse. Let's open this thing up. I think this one is complete. It's looking pretty crispy. So there it is. The PS2 cards always had this pretty awesome looking blue stuff coming off the back. Pretty iconic IBM blue color there they used in a bunch of machines. Definitely in the PS2 line. And then in the box, we've got a disc and a little bit of documentation. I really like the line art IBM liked to use, but probably still do, in their documentation. A near perfect replication of the part. That's very useful when you're searching for stuff. This thing's going to tell us how to install this thing in a machine, hopefully. And then we've got the Token Ring Network Adapter A, of course, drivers. So we'll need this to install the card properly. Another thing I like is the stickers that came with it. Also, I can never... It takes me like 4 attempts to put this thing back in the plastic. You think it'd be easy, but I can never remember which way it goes. The cards are really cool looking. A lot of them are quite long. This one's got this extension so that it can fit all the way to the back of the case and get supported back there by some guides. And you can see there's this blank space right here, and they include stickers for a bunch of different languages to put right in that spot. Token ring adapter there in English. Then we've got token ring adapter there in some other language. Okay. Then we've got token ring adapter, lowercase a, dash, token ring court, you get the idea. I think if we get this thing working, we might have to pull one of these vintage stickers off and throw it on there, because it'll be such a feat. This also could be cut off. This is also a sticker. That could be cool. On a lot of token ring cards, you'll notice there is an unpopulated IC slot. That was for a special Ripple boot ROM. Ripple stands for Remote Initial Program Load, aka net booting, meaning you can boot your machine over the network either to install an operating system or have it operate as a diskless network client. The vast majority of my cards do not have this ROM. These ROMs have been dumped on Ardent Tool, your go-to source for PS2 information. I used to have, but I don't have anymore, a way to actually write to these ROMs. I'll do that someday. But you better believe in this pile of crap, I've got one of these cards that has the Ripple ROM. These beautiful babies right here. I have not unwrapped them yet. This is a pair of what I think are 83X7487s. Not that that's useful. I think these are very early Token Ring cards. On the ROMs there, we can see some 1986 date codes. Very early in Token Ring's life. The other one had its sticker ripped off. Maybe they reflashed it or something. I'll put a little sticker there. My understanding is it's actually not that big of a deal. It's very hard to... Let me back up. You can point some light at this, maybe some special light, I don't know. And you can erase the contents of the ROM. And so maybe that's just been happening over the years. That's okay though. Like I was showing you, all of my other cards don't have the Ripple ROM populated. So I saw these on eBay, and we've got the red Ripple ROM right there. And it was one of those lots where there was like multiple of them. Really detailed pictures. I messaged the seller and asked, hey, does every single card in the lot have the IC with the red sticker on it? He said, yep. And so I picked up 2 of them. I think the third one's still out there if you're really feeling it. So anyway, I'm very excited to have these. I suspect they only operate at 4 megabits per second because they are so ancient. And on the front, they just have the green sticker. They're using the DB9 connector there. Here's a newer one, and the green sticker usually says 16.4 or 4 or 16 or what, whatever the card supports, and these guys just have a green one. Very excited to have these in the collection. Look how involved these cards are from 1986. Let me pull out a much more modern one. Here's a PCI Token Ring card, so not totally a fair comparison, but look how much they condensed all this stuff into probably that one IC. They really improve things over time. And I haven't even shown you the back of these things. Get ready. Look at that. That is a pretty typical like IBM layout of the day. It's the kind of the way they were getting everything soldered onto PCBs. Let me go see if I can find the name of this. This is that one out of the blue box we were looking at, and it kind of has the same, sort of the same thing going on, a very grid-like pattern rather than traces all over the place like a more modern PCB. In my 30 seconds of research, I think it's called copper thieving, this strategy. I don't know if it was an IBM only thing. I've only ever seen it on IBM stuff. This is not the only card I've seen this on, but it is quite the sight to behold. So I know I was raving about the cables, but the MCA cards themselves are always incredible looking, even the newer ones. I'm very happy to have these theoretically Ripple boot capable cards. We're not going to do that in this video. I'll explain why later. I don't think I have a machine that can actually operate as the Ripple server at the moment, but we'll definitely be covering that in the future. I've got a lot of Token Ring cards in the collection of various architectures, ISA, PCI, MCA, but you're not missing much. They're basically just like modern editions of everything I was just showing you here. But I've got one more you need to sit through, the crown jewel of the collection, and you'll notice it's a different color. Believe it or not, IBM was not the only name in the game when it came to Token Ring hardware. This is a Madge Networks MC32 ring node 16.4 Token Ring card. And it is absolutely beautiful. Just look at this thing. It's got the red accent color as opposed to IBM's blue right there. Also has what I'm assuming is an empty ROM slot for Ripple booting, just like all the others. I don't know much about Madge other than that they were UK based and they were a pretty big name in the Token Ring network arena.
Token Ring, time-tested technology like that of the master clock builders. Madge has set the momentum to switch networks into high gear and lead Token Ring into the future.
This card was very generously donated by a viewer and patron named Jack. It came in some PS2 gear he picked up, so huge thanks to him. And of course, we've got the drivers. And Madge was a big deal in the Token Ring world. Another viewer sent in some incredible pictures of a Madge-only Token Ring network sitting in a Molson Coors brewery in the UK. To this day, unplugged, probably hasn't been turned on in years, sitting there in a corner. Just look at this stuff. Remember when I said that Madge card was the last one I'd make you sit through? Well, I lied. These are Token Ring port adapters for the Cisco 7200 series routers. In the other room, I've got what I'm calling the retro rack, and I've got a 7206 VXR router in there. And for a brief moment, I thought I had messed up utterly, but it can accept this Token Ring card using the RJ45 connectors, UTP cables. It can't accept, to my understanding, this Token Ring full duplex DB9 STP card, but basically those routers are modular. You can put like ATM and T1 and Token Ring cards in them. Eventually, we will be using the retro rack with this Token Ring card here, hopefully, I think it's compatible, to bridge between Token Ring and Ethernet. That's the plan anyway. I don't know if we're going to do that in this video, but I wanted to show you these two last very important cards in the equation, at least down here for me. If you've made it this far, you're probably wondering, are we actually going to do anything in this video? Let's fire up one of those PS2s and get a Token Ring adapter inside of it. Let's get to work. This is an IBM PS2 Model 50Z, came out in 1988, same year I came out. In a previous video, this thing wasn't working at all. I got it restored. It's functional. It's got DOS, I think 5.0 installed on it, on a MCA IDE, a modern MCA card that lets you put compact flash cards in this thing, which is really convenient. Before we fire it up, make sure it's still working. Haven't fired it on in a couple months. I want to show you the back, show you something ironic. On the back, you can see a compact flash card poking out of that MCA IDE. That's going to be pretty important for our purposes today, but we've also got over here what you might recognize as a mouse and keyboard port, the PS2 mouse and keyboard port if you're of a certain age. And we're complaining about MCA and how it's all proprietary. The PS2 line is what came out with these original ports, which became completely standard. So here's the mouse connector here. Before the days of USB, that's how you plugged in a mouse and keyboard. And even better, over here, we've got a VGA port. Also came out with the PS2 line. So something that came out as proprietary or trying to take back everything, introduced two very important components to us, the VGA connector and the PS2 mouse and keyboard. That's where the PS2 comes from in the name. You might have noticed that VGA connector is missing a pin. That was pretty typical in the early days of VGA. It wasn't actually necessary. So I've got a special cable here where the pin has been clipped so that I can put it on there. These IBM 2s have very satisfying power switches. Unfortunately, mine has broken off. I can't even flick it with this thing. It's in the on position, so when we plug it in, this thing will turn on. We've got the pretty elite setup, compact PS2 mouse. Got this Belkin keyboard, which looks like maybe it's been pooped on. What we're hoping for here is that it boots up into DOS off that compact flash card. Powering on, I see some lights, that's good. I think it is trying to boot off the MCA IDE. You can see the XT IDE Universal BIOS there. And there we go. I said DOS 5, it's got 6.1, I think that just said. And here we are. Keyboard's working, that's good. We can get into DOS here and do DOS stuff. Perfect. Now the video can actually begin. We're gonna power this off, get the lid off, and try to get a Token Ring card in here. I tried that previously, and there's some sort of like bus conflict with a typical Token Ring card and the MCA IDE, so we're going to tackle that next. All of the PS2 line, but this Model 50 in particular, are kind of pride themselves on being toolless. Okay, slides that way. All right, so case comes up just like that. These PS2 machines are notorious for not even wanting to boot if their clock battery is bad. This is probably the original one, maybe replaced once. You can find these online. This one still works, so I need to get a replacement for that because it's not going to work that much longer, I'm sure. You can see I don't have a lot going on in here. No floppy drives, no hard disk. That's where that usually go. And then we've got the compact flash there. From this point forward, we're done singing praises about PS2 and VGA and helping the industry and all that. This is a normal floppy drive with a normal floppy drive connector and power. And look at this crap you got to deal with. You got to buy a special converter board to get that into this proprietary IBM setup. I have a better situation for this later. So now we have a floppy drive for the drivers. This is that Token Ring card we unboxed together out of that blue box. I'm pretty sure I've tried this exact card and it doesn't work, so we'll deal with that. Here are those slots I was talking about that this thing is gonna fit into, I think. All right. So he's in there. Let's boot it back up, see what it does. I don't actually know what it does when you just try to boot to DOS. It might just ignore it. Pretty promising news. It booted right up into DOS with the card installed. I think that's further than I got last time. But DOS isn't going to know anything about this card we just installed. These are the old days, folks. These PS2s have a very limited BIOS on the mainboard, just enough to find a disk or a hard drive to boot from. In our case, we're booting from the flash card coming off the back there. They use reference disks. So you can see I've got my IBM 50Z ref disk from previous adventures. So we're going to reboot this thing with this in there, and we'll get into BIOS settings where we can actually install this card, and we'll do some floppy disk swapping. I'll show you that. Did you know that Control-Alt-Delete? It's been around forever. I hear it doing stuff on that. It's flashing a 165 code on the screen. This is what it looks like when we boot from the reference disk. It's complaining about adapter configuration error, that 165 I was mentioning, and you can see we have this automatically configure the system section. So I'm going to press Y for yes, and it's going to go try to figure out what card I installed, I think. It's actually pretty slick. Yeah, it doesn't like it. Error occurred. Yeah, that's fine. Complete, huh? I feel like I've been here before. I'm going to have to mess around a little bit. This is probably better. What I'm hoping for is I can get into the reference diskette software. This is the splash screen we're looking at right now for the reference diskette, which is excellent, obviously. So I'm going to press enter. I was hoping, maybe I'm supposed to like do this before I put the card in. I can't remember. What the heck? Okay, so what's supposed to happen, to my understanding, is that the reference disk will notice there's a card, which it did, and then it's supposed to prompt me to put the correct driver file disk in. It's not doing that. It's just erroring out. I'm going to mess around. It could be the card. This card might not be compatible with this machine. I'm going to mess around a little bit, try some cards, see if I can't get it to show me that menu. Okay, it's just moments later. All I did was move it to this other slot and check out the screen. This is the reference diskette menu, and I think what I want to do is copy an option diskette. So I'm taking out the ref disk and putting in the Token Ring drivers. Enter. Now it's moving the Token Ring drivers into memory, right? The whopping 1 meg of memory this thing has. Now I put the ref disk back in. I think I've done this before and it didn't work. I mess around with these things just long enough in between each session that I forget everything. Ref disk back in, pressing enter. Copying to ref disk. It's updated. Okay, let's reboot. We're booting from the ref disk, which now should theoretically have the Token Ring adapter drivers on there, and we're in another slot. I'm going to say automatically configure. Didn't work. Okay, that's enough winging it. I'm going to actually go figure out what I need to do here and find a compatible Token Ring card. I'll be back. We've made what I might call progress. Instead of an error, it's a warning saying it can't find the drivers, and then I need to copy them to the diskette. I had tried these three, no success. This is a slightly different one. I'm gonna have to go look up what it is. Actually, I'm gonna keep messing around until it succeeds. I'll leave you alone. I've got this really big box. I think it's like much older, and as I opened it up, my suspicions were confirmed. It's this long guy right here. It's exactly the same as the ones I was showing you that had those ICs with the red sticker on it, except of course it doesn't have one. It's giving the same warning, and I've got the original IBM documentation that is sealed with the discs, and I figured I should probably get this on camera. Normally I'd open it up here, but I think I'm going to do less damage down here. I'd like to preserve this at least a little bit. Come on, baby. Oh geez. There we go. Look at the glue has like worn the label out. It says I'm supposed to put in the right drivers. Well, that didn't work. It's the next day. I've been messing around with this for a few hours, and I was being a little tongue-in-cheek when I said I was like winging it. I actually know what to do. There's a procedure, and it usually just works. What you're supposed to do is power the machine off and put the reference disk in, right? So you can boot from that. Then you power it on, and there's an option in there to copy an options diskette. In our case, it would be to copy the drivers from the Token Ring floppy disks I've got here over to the reference disk, then they're on the reference disk, then you power the thing off again. And then finally, you put the Token Ring card in. You power it back up and you get that automatic configuration thing, but we were always getting that error that it couldn't read the file. Well, I've discovered a clue. I was kind of getting desperate, so I made a fresh reference disk. This is a brand new version of this one, but this one already has like drivers on it from me messing around over the last few months. This one's fresh, no drivers on it at all. So we're gonna boot the machine from this one. So we're booting off that brand new reference disk, totally clean, no drivers on it. Press enter, and we get adapter configuration error 165. It doesn't know about any adapters in here. And we're gonna say yes to automatically configure. Automatic configuration is being run. It's complaining that it doesn't know what's in slot 1. It's asking me to put the correct floppy disk in with the adapter files for slot 1, which is the MIC IDE hosting PC DOS. This guy right here, this is slot 1. So that fresh reference disk has no idea what this thing's all about. I, of course, have those drivers on this disk. So we pop out the ref disk, we put in the MIC IDE adapter files right there. We're gonna press enter now that that disk is in. Automatic configuration being run. It read the disk and it was totally happy about it. Now it's complaining about slot 2. Slot 2, of course, being our Token Ring card here. This is the disk that came with that exact card. I've got like 4 or 5 of these. They all do the same thing. I've tested every single one, so it's asking us to put the Token Ring drivers in. I don't know if driver is quite the right terminology here, but they're adapter files, and we'll talk about that later. They're just plain text files. I'm gonna press enter. Automatic configuration. An error right away. It says reading the option adapter file. I'm pretty sure what's going on here is that this floppy drive, which is rather new, let me see. Well, I can't find a date, but I'm guessing this is from the 2000s. I don't think it can read these disks. It has no trouble with high density 1.44 megabyte disks, but these driver files are on these 1.0 megabyte. I think that's called double density. Don't quote me on that. I think it's mangling the files when I copy them to the ref disk, because what you just saw was it trying to read it directly off the disk here, and it doesn't work. And I'm having a hard time believing that the 5 or 6 disks I have that have, this one's slightly older, but for the purposes of our conversation and troubleshooting here, I have like 5 of these. And I find it very hard to believe that they all bit rotted in exactly the same way. So I think what's going on is got a floppy drive issue. There's a bunch of ways to tackle this, but I think I'm gonna load up this floppy drive image on my Windows 11 machine, and I'm gonna manually add known good versions of these files to it. I'm gonna rewrite it to one of these 1.44 megabyte high density disks, and I think it's gonna like it. Let's try that. I keep calling these disks and the files like drivers. I don't know if that's technically correct. They're actually adapter description files, .adf files, and there's a bunch of them unique to each adapter. The file name on disk always starts with an @ symbol and then a 4-digit, I think it's a hex code unique identifier for the cards. The one we need for most of my Token Ring cards is E001.adf. You can see right here, Token Ring Network 16.4 Adapter A. That's what the vast majority of my cards are. However, the one we unboxed together that had the disc with the glue damage there is actually older, and if we were to try to use this one, we would need E000.adf. Now, the plan here is we're gonna download a fresh copy of E001, and it's just a text file that you can read. This informs the machine how to actually let you set up this card, how to use it. You can see it's got the 1988 copyright code. It's got the adapter name, stanza, I don't know what you would call this. It's some sort of DDL that IBM came up with, you know, some domain-specific language that informs the machine how to interact with an MCA card. And you need the ADF file for any MCA card you might have. So what we're gonna do is I'm gonna download a fresh copy of this. My computer is gonna put like new timestamps on it. We might have to deal with that. And we're gonna put it in a known good image of the ref disk. Here we are in a tool called WinImage that lets you look at floppy disk images, and this is a fresh copy of the 50Z ref disk, the disk that lets us configure the machine. Of course, you can see it's already got some files on there. In fact, it already has some ADF files, probably for stuff on the main board. Let's look one up randomly. DF9F. Let's go see what that is. That was a lucky pull, because we can kind of guess maybe what this thing actually is. Integrated fixed disk and controller. So there's probably a fixed disk controller on the planar. That's IBM's name for a motherboard. And that is the ADF for it. And that just comes on the ref disk. So what we're going to do is I think we can inject a file. Right here we've got the fresh copy of E001. It's asking me if I want to put that in the image, and I do. And now it's there. I don't know if this matters, but of course it's been modified now on the day I downloaded that. I don't know if the machine's going to like that. Hopefully we can change that. Are these things Y2K compliant? Let's find out. Some quick research says probably not, but you can do something about that. Anyway, obviously the DOS version I've got on there isn't, and whatever utilities are here. So let's set this to back to 1988. I wonder if this tool's going to let us do that. Okay, I think that worked. And we're going to save this. I'm going to reopen it just in case. That seems to have persisted. So I'm going to write this to a fresh floppy disk, just the same way I've written all the other ref disks for this machine, that it loads up just fine. And hopefully the ADF file for the token ring card is sitting on there already, and it'll be able to configure and see the adapter properly. It's writing now. I'm using a grease weasel to do this, a modern device that lets me hook up floppy drives over USB and take raw flux images and write images to floppy drives, to floppy disks. Incredibly useful tool, as you can imagine, for something like this. I'm using real media and real floppy drives because I have that grease weasel. I also have a Gotek floppy emulator, a couple of them actually. Never used them, and I've never set them up. And so what you can do is you can put the images, like the one we were just editing together, on a USB stick, and then you just cycle through, and it's as if you're putting a floppy disk with that image into the machine. I just haven't set these up yet. So if this whole real media thing doesn't work out for us, we've got yet another backup plan. The fresh ref disk has been written with our token ring adapter file for this token ring card, hopefully, so we're going to boot up. And because it's fresh, it's actually not going to have the drivers for the MIC IDE, but that's okay. We'll still be able to test, and I'll get those on the ref disk. So far, so good. It likes the ref disk. We'll get in here. We're going to do automatic configuration, and it's going to complain about the MIC IDE in slot 1, I believe. So there it is. I'm going to put the MIC IDE drivers in. This is not the token ring card yet. Press enter. Okay, I'm going to put the ref disk back in. Such a song and dance you have to do. Pressing enter, and we'll see what happens. It did not complain about the token ring card. We're going to let the computer restart itself. It's not complaining about misconfiguration. Let's boot from A disk again. I don't even know what to do. Let's view configuration. Oh, look at this. It knows about the token ring card. Slot 1, it's still unrecognized adapter. Totally expected. I just need to get the ADF files on the disk. Look at this. 4 megabits per second. That is what my token ring network operates at. I think we've done it, or at least we've gotten further than I've ever gotten. I need to do a little housekeeping for myself here, so I'm going to copy an option diskette. And we've done this a million times before, but I'm just putting the MIC IDE drivers on this reference disk. They were on my other one. This is my new good one. We are good to go. It sees the MIC IDE in slot 1. It sees the token ring card in slot 2. Now we need to get some software onto this machine, onto the PC DOS installation, so we can actually do something with this thing. So that's really good, but believe it or not, the battle has just begun. This thing is running PC DOS 6.1, I think, and it doesn't know, this operating system doesn't know anything about getting this token ring card on a local area network. So basically, I'm gonna have to do some research and figure out the right combination of software and actual drivers to be able to interface this thing with some other machines. So we're gonna turn this guy off for now. I would like to get this so that I could close things up, and you can see there's no normal mounting setup here. You need these special trays, and I didn't have any, and luckily Viborg over at the Surreyport Discord shot me over one that he 3D printed, so this slides in there, and you can screw the floppy drive into that. And then of course you might need to 3D print some of the front plates, and you can, I don't know, get a Gotek in there like that or something. I'm not sure what I'm going to do. We're going to set this aside for now. I need to do a bunch of research that we will revisit shortly for you, hours for me. Let's hook up the other token ring gear I've got and make sure everything is functioning in that regard. We'll start with this Pentium 1 Windows 95 machine. Absolutely beautiful. Totally classic, just crap box. You would have, a piece of crap you would have had all over the place back in the day. But on the back, it of course also has a token ring card. It's got both connector styles. I think it's a PCI card. Ran when parked. So let's fire this thing up. Here's the basic setup. I've got it in port 1 of the 8228 MAU. It's going to be the only thing on the ring. It can be a common misconception when you're glancing at this stuff and it's not working that you need to worry about these ports on the left and the right. This is ring in and ring out, but you don't actually need anything in there. These are just the nice like dust covers. They don't actually do anything to the port or the network at all. Mine doesn't have them. This is Doogie Labs Mao, in fact, that he let me borrow. And you can actually daisy chain these for a total of 18 ring stations in this configuration. I'd like to do that someday, but I don't have these type 1 to type 1 patch cables. I'll hunt some of those down eventually, and we'll get the ring in and ring out ports all wired up and make bigger and bigger Mao stacks or whatever, I don't know, whatever you call it. Getting into Windows 95, I just heard the Mao click. I think at this point in the boot up process is when it tries to activate the network card. Down on the token ring adapter, that light is green, and basically if that light stays green and we don't hear any more clicks, that's as much as we know about it behaving. Booted up, I think it's on the ring. It's hard to tell without more than one computer. This is my stack. I've got TCP IP. I don't think we'll be using this on the IBM PS2. And then I've also got NetBUI. And if we come over here, NetBUI is the thing that lets you like share a folder and just give it a name, this MS-DOS name, KT share. And so the idea here is we should be able to like mount this folder on the IBM PS2 once it's on the LAN and healthy. Just to make sure the ring is healthy though, let's get one more machine on it. This is a Windows 98 laptop, a ThinkPad, what is this thing? T23. And I've got this Token Ring PC MCA adapter. It's gonna slot right in there, and it's got the type 1 converter on it. So we'll get it in port 2, and then this thing slots in to one of these. There we go, just like that. Coming up. It's complaining about the CMOS battery, but I don't care. And we got Windows 98. I just heard that click. Hopefully that is cool. This one always like does more clicking and clacking, but it ends up working. We'll see. Famous last words. Here's this thing's IP address on the ring, 192.168.98. Don't worry about how crappy everything looks. I don't have any of the drivers. This thing's barely usable, but we should be able to ping it from the other machine now. Back on the Windows 95 desktop, let's ping the laptop, and we're getting a reply. So believe it or not, this is a fully functioning token ring network with 2 ring nodes on it. I can never believe it every time I see it. That went way faster than I thought. I have to actually go sit down and do my research about this PS2 over here. Let's see if we can get that thing on the ring. I will never get tired of looking at this screen. This is what I'm going to try first. We're going to get the IBM LAN support program on there. That should have the Token Ring network drivers, the NetBUI drivers I was talking about that we're going to need. And then we'll install the Microsoft Network Client 3, which I think will actually let us interact with other computers on the ring over NetBUI. Let's find out. New plan. We're going to go all in on Microsoft Network Client 3.0. We're going to get the installer files over here in the hopes that it has my token ring drivers I need. We'll see. And as much as I'd like a bigger workbench, it just wouldn't be quite the same experience, you know what I mean? So the first trick will be, can we actually read this floppy drive? Okay, there are the files I added to the disk. I'm gonna create a folder to put these in. I think it's Mictor, I don't know, MSC, about that. And there they are. File not found. How about this? There it goes. I have a confession. I'm so bad at like raw DOS. Know my way around Windows, but total noob when it comes to just pure DOS. This is gonna take a while. These are self-extracting executables, and I was watching a Retro Tech Chris video where he's doing something very similar with a similar network setup, just not token ring. And he was saying if you don't do -D, it doesn't preserve the directory structure. Oh, and also DOS and Windows are case insensitive, so I'm probably triggering some people by using it sometimes and using it not. I randomly decide. And there it goes. It is inflating all the files we're going to need. I'm going to do this for both of those executables. That's done, and now we're going to run setup. Okay, enter. That seems fine. I hope I have enough RAM to actually run this thing. I have 1 mega RAM. Pretty sure it's enough. So far so good. It's asking for a network username. I'll be Clab PS2. I'm going to take a look at the network configuration. Oh, it already found it. Okay, this was the right move. That's correct. Everything, I guess, I don't know. Let's see. It's going to go off and do its thing. If the oldest you've ever gone is Windows XP, even this will look familiar. This whole setup UX, or such as it is, has been around forever. That was actually very quick. I've only been messing with this for like a couple minutes. It wants me to remove the disk. We're going to press enter to restart the computer. Okay. I don't know what to do now. What did it put in that net folder? IBM Talk. That is the Token Ring driver, I think. What else we got here? Not much. Okay, time for some more research. I think this net exe is going to help us a lot. Just kidding. Did no research and I ran net. I'm going to start the workstation service. Oh yeah, dude. LAN manager drivers. Oh no. IPX or NetBEUI must be running in order to load the network services. Okay. Progress. I ran setup again to configure some stuff. I'm going to add the protocol. I think I want NetBEUI. Or do you think this thing could handle TCP/IP? Let's just do it. Point. It's looking for stuff. So I think I need to point it at my install media folder. I am winging this so hard, guys. I have no idea what I'm doing. It seemed fine with that. I'm also going to add NetBEUI. Just for good measure, I'll get that installed. This is looking good. I issued a net view and it started up the workstation service, excuse me. And now it's just saying the list of servers for this work group is not currently available. I think that's probably okay. It's also obviously not plugged in. And there's no machines on the network, so let me get that on. Are we gonna hear some clicks? I really don't know. I think they try every few moments. I'm just messing around a little bit. Let's do net config. Starts that up. I just heard it click. Yeah, look at that. Cloud PS2 is the computer name. It is in the ring. I'm almost positive. I heard it click. One click. If you hear more clicks and clacks and stuff, that's usually a bad sign. One click, the computer thinks everything's cool. Let's fire up some other machines. Doing a bunch of funny business getting NetBEUI installed on this one. I only ever had TCP/IP, unfortunately. And you should always copy your Windows install media to the C drive. And I did not do that on this machine for some reason. But here we go. Think we've done it. So on the ThinkPad, I'm trying to net view clab PS2, which is the PS2 machine over there on the bench. And it's complaining that it can't find it. But I've got a shared folder called from T23 sitting right here. Check this out. Do a net view T23. That's the name of the ThinkPad. Look at that. Share name from T23. Oh, I'm in shock. It's just working. At least in one direction. Maybe I have to share something from that, but I don't care. That thing is on a Token Ring network and can talk to this other machine that's like way newer than it over the MAU, over Token Ring. It is working. Okay, we're going to try one more thing. We're going to do net use Z, and we're going to try to mount this folder. No way. There's no way. It worked. How do I look at a file on DOS? Oh my gosh. Oh, I think I can do type hello.txt. There it is. That is the contents of the file. Obviously, this is coming as no surprise really in the end, but this thing is fully networked. It can access and probably create files in that folder. This is amazing and really convenient actually, because now I have a networked way to get files over to this thing. Obviously, this is all very cumbersome still because these are older machines, but I'm going to work my way up to newer and newer and bridge this with an Ethernet network. This is fantastic progress. We're actually going to do one last test, a speed transfer test. I was rooting around in the Windows directory for something of reasonable size, and I found mshtml.tlb, and it is 1 megabyte. So I got that copied over to our share. This is a 4 megabit per second Token Ring network, which means it should be able to copy that megabyte over in about 2 seconds, best case scenario. So everything goes perfectly. I think it's obviously should take longer than that, but basically best case scenario, the throughput of this 4 megabit Token Ring network is 500 kilobytes per second, 1 megabyte file, roughly 2 seconds. Let's fire up the PS2, see how long it takes. Getting the network fired up, I had been doing it by running other net commands, but typically I think you'd use net start, and I just heard it click and enter the ring as it boots up. You would usually put this in one of the startup files to, start up immediately. I think I just heard it leave the ring though. That's not good. It's having trouble. Interesting. It took about 3 or 4 attempts that time, but I think everything is cool now. It asks you to type in a password, and that's kind of cool. It auto-mounted the Z drive for me, even though I had rebooted the machine. Let's go take a look at what's in there. Ooh, slow. Extended error 53. What does that mean? Let's try that again. Oh, trouble in paradise. Tried the whole thing over again, and we're out of memory. That's interesting. Got it working. I think I know what happened. This thing joined the ring first. This machine wasn't on, and it automatically set the ring speed to 16 megabits per second. Then when this one tried to join, it has been hard-coded to 4 megabits. So it didn't like it and kept leaving the ring. I don't know if this card can do something called auto-negotiation, where it inspects the ring and decides. This PC MCA card over here can do that. So when I put it, all I did was just pull it out, reboot this guy. It's on the ring, everything's cool. Then I pop this guy back in, you hear some clicks. It finds out somehow through the protocol that the ring is at 4 megabits. Now everything is cool. Over on the PS2, I can mount the share. I can look at that MS HTML file. Let's do a very unscientific test and copy it to the C drive. 4 seconds. So with all the overhead and the reality of the speed of the machines and all the network gear involved, it's about twice as slow as the theoretical maximum. Theoretical being the key word. It's never actually going to operate that fast. So this machine on the bottom here, as you saw, has a token ring card inside it, an MCA token ring card, and we have successfully gotten it on a token ring. But we didn't do much with it, of course, but this was just the first hurdle, DOS networking. There were a bunch of other ways to tackle this. There's various LAN manager clients from Microsoft and rebranded as IBM, HP, TCP/IP stacks, and all these different ways you could get networking stacks onto DOS machines back in the day. And I've got to thank Jay Horvath 911 in the Serial Port Discord for pointing me in the direction of the Microsoft networking client for DOS. That was by and far going to be the easiest way to accomplish this. It was very simple. My other strategy with multiple packages would have worked as well, I'm pretty sure. And again, all these different LAN managers and ways to do this that are totally overwhelming and confusing if you're someone like me who didn't do this back in the day. I have never actually sat down and set up a network on a pure DOS machine, let alone a token ring network. So with that out of the way, what I'd really like to do is start Ripple booting some of these PS2s. Ripple stands for Remote Initial Program Load. Ripple is going to let us net boot these things as diskless workstations. This is an IBM 55SX. It is a perfect candidate. I have 2 of them that I'd like to start Ripple booting. I recently took a stab at Ripple booting with an RS6000 machine. I'd still like to get that working. I was doing some reading, and older versions of AIX, IBM's Unix variant, that I can run on some really large P5 machines I've got in the retro rack in the other room, might be able to let me Ripple boot RS6000, I haven't successfully done that yet, and DOS on these IBM PS2 machines. Need to do a little more research there. The worst case scenario is that we set up this 50Z at the bottom here as a dedicated Ripple boot machine for the PS2s or other DOS workstations, but I don't think it has enough memory to run the software. We'll dive into that in the future. As I got the Windows networking client installed and got this running, I know it was probably like a whirlwind. Well, it was like 30 minutes of time, actually, from the time I decided to put that on the floppy disk to I got these online, and you can probably tell by my voice I was kind of frantic. I could not believe it was working, and it actually went really smooth. I for sure thought that was going to be the hardest part of the operation. It turned out the hardest part was getting the ADF files on the machine to get the Token Ring network card installed in the first place. But I think that's going to do it for this one. Obviously, more Token Ring stuff, more IBM stuff coming in the future. Got a bunch of different sort of half projects with the phones and everything else going on down here. So if you really like what you see and you haven't already, please consider subscribing. Really helps the channel grow, and I've also got a Patreon. I actually posted a draft version of this video because I couldn't finish it in time for the weekend as I went out of town. I post behind the scenes, the occasional early release, and what I'm tinkering with. Thanks again for watching, and as always, I'll see you in the next one.